In a quiet, forgotten corner of the world, beneath the endless sky of ancient India, there once lived a king. No one remembers his name. It's been lost to the wind, carried away like a whispered secret at the edge of a dream. You won't find him in the pages of history books, carved in stone, or etched in gold. His story doesn't shout. It doesn't demand to be seen. It lingers, soft and elusive, like the morning mist that disappears just as the sun rises. But if you sit still, really still, and listen when the world is hushed, when the night wraps itself around everything like a warm shawl, you might feel his presence. You might hear it, a story unfurling in the dark, like an old scroll slowly coming to life by candlelight. This king, he didn't rule with force. No sword. No armor. No marching armies under banners flapping in the wind. He ruled with kindness. With presence. With a deep stillness that moved through his kingdom like the slow, steady breath of the land itself. His power wasn't loud, it was like the heartbeat of the earth, quiet but unshakable. His mornings didn't begin with horns or war drums. There was no clatter of boots on stone. Just birdsong. Melodies so light they seemed to float on air, pouring through the palace windows, stirring the lotus petals on the pond outside, gently nudging him awake. The king would rise, not to a throne of gold or marble, but to the soft grass beside the water. He sat under ancient trees with wide, patient leaves while the light of dawn turned everything it touched into gold. Those gardens were his kingdom. That quiet, living space, full of dragonflies hovering over still waters, koi weaving silent paths below the surface, and the glistening dew that clung to every blade of grass like tiny jewels, that was his royal court. There were no parades, no crowds cheering his name. Each day he lived was its own poem. Each breath, a verse. His palace wasn't a fortress. It was a home, open, warm, and full of laughter. Not the kind of laughter that echoes in great halls filled with gestures and performance, but the kind that rises up naturally between friends, among children playing tag in sunlit corridors, in quiet conversations over shared meals. His people didn't fear him. They loved him. Genuinely. Because he listened. And in listening, he made them feel seen. The king didn't speak just to be heard. He spoke when it mattered. He chose silence when silence was kinder. He collected the stories of his people, holding their hopes and sorrows like delicate flowers. He didn't just rule over lives, he held them, with reverence, with care. And when the day rolled slowly into afternoon and the sun started its lazy descent, the king would retreat into one of the most sacred places in his world, the palace library. It wasn't a grand archive or a museum. It was a quiet sanctuary tucked behind carved wooden doors. Cool air, scented faintly with sandalwood and old paper, wrapped around him like a second skin. The light streamed through narrow windows, golden and soft, illuminating the dust that danced like spirits in the stillness. He'd wander slowly between the shelves. His fingers brushed the spines of books the way one might run their hands over the surface of a still lake. Delicate, intentional, unhurried. He didn't read for knowledge alone. He read to connect, to remember, to feel. Sometimes he'd pull out a scroll with trembling care and settle near the window, where the breeze played with the pages like a child tugging at an elder's sleeve. And sometimes, he wrote. Dipping his brush into ink dark as night, he'd write what he saw, what he felt. Not proclamations or laws, but reflections. Thoughts that drifted through his mind like clouds, unrushed, unforced. His writing wasn't for others to read. It was for the act itself. A way of being present. A way of breathing. Outside the library, life carried on. Gardeners trimmed roses with quiet pride. The aroma of freshly prepared meals curled through the air as chefs created feasts of love, not luxury. Children raced through sun-drenched courtyards, their laughter trailing behind them like ribbons. But inside those library walls, time slowed to a whisper. It stretched out, patient and eternal, like the king himself was gently protecting the silence, preserving the hush of the centuries-old souls that lingered in the pages. He read about forgotten lands and ancient beliefs, about heroes whose names had long disappeared. He explored the philosophies of other worlds, the hidden sciences whispered between generations. But always, always he came back to the songs of his people. The ones sung under banyan trees. The tales shared in quiet kitchens. The poems etched into the wind by lovers and dreamers. That's where he found the truth of his kingdom. Not in conquest, but in connection. When the sun slipped beneath the horizon and the soft hues of twilight blanketed the palace, the king would rise. His steps barely made a sound on the thick carpets. He moved through the hallways like a thought not yet spoken, calm and slow, making his way up to the terrace, the highest one, where the sky felt closest. Up there, the night waited for him. The jasmine bloomed, releasing its scent into the cooling air. The stars began to appear, one by one, as if they were responding to his presence. And the moon, eternal and silent, watched with gentle eyes. He'd walk slowly across the stone terrace, his royal robe trailing behind like a quiet memory. Every so often, he'd pause at the railing, gazing out over his kingdom. Sleeping fields, still gardens, peaceful homes tucked under the blanket of night. Everything calm. Everything in place. That was when the king would begin to speak again. Not to his advisors, not to scribes or servants, but to the wind. Just whispers. Words about his youth. Dreams that never came true. Little hopes that fluttered like moths around the steady flame in his heart. The stories he told were never recorded. They drifted away, blending with the rustling leaves and the soft calls of nightbirds, fading before they ever landed. But he didn't mind. Because he understood something most rulers never did. Not every story needs to be remembered in ink and stone. Some are meant to be carried by the breeze. Some are meant to touch the world in invisible ways. And as the night deepened, as the stars shimmered more brightly, the king continued to walk the terrace in silence, his legacy floating softly through the air like a lullaby waiting for someone, somewhere, to hear it.